Good morning, good afternoon. This is Jen Bonnett with Creative Coast. In our soon-to-be podcast/Zoom room, it's awful white in here at the Creative Coast offices, but we have ordered soundproofing and we have ordered a green screen. So pretty soon you could have a fancy Zoom call in our Zoom room, podcast room. Thanks for being here. Today we're going to talk about Content Marketing 101, and I am not a marketing expert. So you're probably wondering why I'm going to give this talk. It's because a lot of people ask me about it. I'm a technologist that's become, I sometimes refer to myself as the accidental marketer, because it's really, really hard to be a technologist and not have any understanding of marketing. Somebody's in the chat. So, right, so I'm a CTO / coder turned entrepreneur that's built software products for most of my career, and co-founded 7 companies, raised some money, had some success selling businesses, and then moved to Savannah to catalyze the startup community. But the one thing that always frustrated me as the technology person on the team was if the marketing and if the customer discovery was not done properly, you didn't actually validate that there was a market for your idea ahead of time, and you ended up building something. I didn't know anything about marketing. And so, I was relying on others to hopefully figure out a strategy and help us turn this product that myself and a team had built into a successful company. And I got frustrated without really understanding marketing. So I kind of followed marketing experts online through social media. My original co-founder of my very first company, eTour, was Jim Lanzone, who is a marketing genius, went on to be the CEO of Ask.com and then CBS Interactive most recently. So I learned a lot from him. And then, of course, my good friend, shout out to Jackie Chu in Atlanta, who was my chief marketing officer catalyst at ATDC and one of my advisory board members for Startup Chicks back in the day, and helped me craft a content strategy around Startup Chicks and then eventually around ATDC. And now lessons learned from that, I'm applying to Creative Coast and other businesses that I do. So this is kind of just an overview of how I think about content marketing, how I think about building a strategy around your content marketing. And some of you that I'm looking at, your names on the little chat there, are really experts at this, probably have more experience than I do. But I'm going to take you back to the basics, because everything starts with the customer, whoever your customer is. So I would love to have some interaction here. So if you could unmute yourself, and I guess I'll call on you would be the easiest way to do this, organized. Call on you, unmute yourself, tell us your name, your company, and what are you currently doing content marketing around today. And I'm just going to go straight down the list. So Chad Warner.
Sorry about that. Hey, I'm Chad Warner from Blue Lime Studio. We do architectural rendering and animation. As far as content marketing, I don't know that we're actually doing anything.
Okay, then I guess you're at the right place. Victoria.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Jen, how are you?
Good.
It's a pleasure to be here, of course. Forgive my tardiness, I was with a client. I'm a mindset and branding coach, so I, of course, I coach clients and help them in their branding, helping them communicate their message, their value, so that they can leverage that to increase their impact and income in their particular business. And I also speak on the subject. And I love content marketing. That's why I saw this, Jen. I was like, oh, I got to go. I always say, if I can learn something new from anyone, I love it. And I'm always stirring up content in regards to branding and, of course, mindset, because it's so important to understand our own uniqueness and how we can leverage that in our business. So I love to use various platforms to actually stream that content to other people so they can have a deeper knowledge about it. But I hope I answered your question correctly.
Awesome. Thank you. There is no right or wrong answer here. And we are going to talk mostly about this strategy component, not necessarily the actual channels. So that's an interesting, I end with channels. There's probably a part 2 to this class.
Okay, perfect.
Emily.
Hey, can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, well, I just started at Great Oaks Bank yesterday as their director of marketing. They are a regional bank. They just opened an office in Pooler 4 weeks ago, and they're growing in Richmond Hill and then Middle Georgia. So I'm looking to the experts to see where I get started with content marketing for banking.
Cool. Excellent. I have some ideas there, but
Great.
catch up. Kate.
Hey everybody, I'm Kate with the Creative Coast. I do digital marketing for the Creative Coast, and if you missed it, I'm always learning from Jen. So I'm here to learn more about content marketing, and also I'm starting with the Creative Coast on September 28th, and I will be full-time there in a digital marketing and programs role. So I'm excited for that. And quick plug, we have She Hustles coming up next Thursday. If you haven't bought your ticket, $10 special today.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're really excited to have Kate back full time. She's kind of never really left the Creative Coast. She just went to a very part-time role for a while, and we've been slowly bringing her back on. So I'm really excited to have Kate back full time with Creative Coast. Karen Mitchell.
Hi, my name is Karen Mitchell. I'm the founder of Cottage Insights, and we offer leadership courses specifically for women. So I'm excited to be here. And right now I'm not doing enough, I know, content marketing. So I'm excited to learn about this a little bit more and what we can be doing for our female leaders.
Awesome. Lisa.
Hello, nice to see you, Jen, and everyone. As far as who I am and what I do, Lisa Kanda. I'm a marketing strategist. My company is LK Advisors. Content marketing, I can always learn more, which is why I'm here, Jen. But for me, it comes down to communication and communication with your ideal clients, as well as people who need to be provided with more information and education. I do it mostly through my blog, as well as social media channels, whether it's video, posts, podcasts, just a variety of different streams that can educate and inform.
Awesome. Thank you. Milena. Milena?
Hello.
Hi there.
Hey, my name is Melina, and I am the owner of Lammergeier Glass Recycling. And I currently have social media outlets, but I am looking to start content marketing in regards to educating local residents about our recycling infrastructure and the benefits of glass specifically. And so I'll be taking, or would like to be taking, the in-person classrooms that I'm starting and transferring that into a digital realm.
Very cool. Trisha. Trisha, we can't hear you if you're trying to speak. Okay, either Marguerite.
Hi, everybody. Well, I have 3 different things going on. And what I'm doing with content marketing currently is most to do with my seasoning business. I make a seasoning blend called Marguerite's Creole Seasoning. And I'm primarily putting photos and video clips on Instagram to show people how to use the seasoning, just to inspire people to cook at home and spice things up and experiment with food and all. And, so it's not only here buy my seasoning, but it's also, encouraging people to experiment in the kitchen. And then hopefully, I'll get some sales for my seasoning blend out of that.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. I am kind of talk about on a high level is what is content marketing? Kind of the ideas of what can you achieve through content marketing. Like one of the things you have to think about is what is your end game? Why are you going to spend all this time creating and sharing content, right? The types of content, roadblocks that I hear from people. Oh, and Trisha just figured out how to get off mute. So Trisha, did you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, sorry. There's multiple mute buttons in the setup that I've got. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, I apologize. I'm Trisha Arnstorm. I'm with Corback Office Technology Solutions. We are an IT, HR, payroll service, and I've just recently joined the team as the business operations manager, and part of it is to increase our business and our sales and our exposure to the market. And so I was just curious about content marketing, so that's why I've joined today.
Awesome, good fit. So we're going to go over what is content marketing, what you can achieve, kind of setting a strategy or goal in mind, the types of content, common concerns or roadblocks that I hear. Then we're going to drill into really going back to the basics, right? So at the end of the day, if you're going to be successful in content marketing, you have to truly understand what value proposition your company, your product offers to your customers. You really have to drill deep into your buyer persona, and you have to understand your buyer's journey and write content for the various stages of that buyer's journey. And then at the very end, we're going to talk a little bit about planning, distribution, and measuring, but I'm really going to focus more on tying everything back to the audience that you wish to talk to, because your content needs to be relevant to your prospective customers. And for some of you, like the rest of the world, really doesn't matter, just that prospective customer. So what is content marketing? Right, so content marketing is a strategic, this is from the Content Marketing Institute, believe it or not, there's a Content Marketing Institute out there, which you can join as a member and get education from. And some of the statistics that I share are gonna actually be from them throughout the course of this presentation, but it's really how can you think from a strategic perspective about creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action, right? So you are taking a very strategic approach. I would say that we are snipers, right? We are not machine guns spraying for cover. We are trying to take a very strategic approach. We know who our customer is. We know who we wish to attract. We are hoping to ultimately end in sales, right? And so our goal is to create something that is valuable to them, that is relevant to them, to do it on a consistent basis such that we get their attention, which is like the hardest thing to get today on the planet is people's attention, and keep it, right? Such that they ultimately buy our product, become happy customers of your product or service, right? So I think about this as how can I, and you'll hear me say this a lot, like I try and think about how can I be a sniper guy, instead of being a machine gun spraying for cover, right? So, and that's really what I'm trying to do when I think about this content marketing strategy, right? Now, there's a lot of things that you can hope to do by creating content, right? And here's a list of a lot of them, right? You may be actually building a category, right? So your product is so novel that there's not actually a category out there yet, right? People don't really understand it. So you're building a category, you're educating people on it. You can test an idea, you can introduce a brand new product. So you're introducing a new product into a marketplace that already exists, building an email list, nurture leads that are not ready to buy. You can use it just as an end game for SEO to become more findable. And you can also do it to set yourself up as a thought leader, which a number of you are already looking to do that in your space. So these are just like some of the end games that you might be thinking about. I do a lot for tests, like with new ideas. I'm going to create content or ask questions through my current social media channels that get people to interact with me around that idea, right? And then if it moves to the next stage, I might focus on building a list and things like that. So I think, these are some of the reasons that you might, want to focus on content marketing. And I think it's important to think about which of these is priority, right? There's all sorts of content, right? Almost everything you do can be turned into content today, right? And some of these can be done multiple, right? You can record a podcast and a video, right? Or you can record a video, turn it into a podcast, actually edit it and turn it into a post, right? And share it all over the place, right? You can teach a class, so there's just multiple ways to think about the content. Some is really short, some is longer form, and you need to be thinking about what kind of content your audience wants to read. I was looking at statistics yesterday and found that more people share longer form content than shorter form content. So even in written word and videos, longer form is preferable for sharing over shorter form. Early this year, for Q1 this year, that was on the results. But really, your solution needs to be a mixture of various types of content. And the type of content's really going to depend on where your customer goes, where your ideal buyer goes, right? Some of the things that I hear, when I talk to people about creating content, the number one is I don't have time. You don't know what to create. My audience is online. What if no one consumes the content? Content doesn't generate revenue. One of the big ones at ATDC was always, I have a B2B product. So, business to business products. So I'm not creating content for an end consumer. My customer is a business, and Lisa, who's online, has a lot of experience with this, with, certainly LinkedIn is becoming a great place to create and share content for business-minded folks. So these are like mental roadblocks, and I'm going to talk you through kind of the process that I think about to help you figure out what to create, how to get it in front of your customer, to kind of blow up the idea that you don't have time, because that's a mental block, right? And the ultimate game is honestly, content does lead to revenue. It's just a long path to revenue. It's not like taking a sale tomorrow, but it goes towards thought leadership, and it will drive sales in the long run. And it's one of the easiest things that you can do, especially for a new business, to go out and test the market and start setting yourself up as a leader before you even have a physical product or service to sell. So this is a quick slide from HubSpot's 2020 study that looked at Q4 of 2019 and said, how are people sharing content strategy? The truth is 80% of all companies said they have a content marketing strategy. About 30% said they plan on spending more money on content strategy in 2020 than they did in 2019. Most content teams for even large companies are just small groups of 6 or less people that are focused on doing this component of their marketing strategy. And you can see these are the types of work that they're doing, are the types of content that they're creating. Tremendous number of blogs. Videos is number 1 right now. And I think part of that's because the video can be turned into a podcast and into a blog post and into potentially an ebook if it's a longer form video and whatnot. But this is what people are doing today. This slide, and any slide that kind of looks like this, is actually meant for you to actually think about, right? This is that, what will content marketing do for your business? So content marketing will, make me an influencer in the XYZ space, thereby making me more credible to grow my business, right? And so this is kind of a little. I'll share these slides afterwards, and they'll be with the video. But this is the start of, you think of, okay, what's your end game for this content marketing? Why are you going to spend all this time, and what do you hope to gain from it? And this is kind of a little exercise you could do for yourself if you wish. So what's your strategy? What's your content marketing strategy? And my encouragement is to go back to the basics, right? Start with your value prop, right? What is special about your product or company that you can create content around? Right? What's your superhero strength? What's your special skill that you can create content around, right? So you have to go back to the basics of what is my value proposition to my customer, and how can I create content that is meaningful around that special sauce, right? So again, another little worksheet here. People will care about our content because X, right? Our content will motivate people to do Y because Z, right? So this is, why are people going to be passionate about your content? Why does your content matter to those people, right? And this comes back to your value proposition for your business. Right? With the Creative Coast, our content is about educating and inspiring, right? We want to educate entrepreneurs and technologists new skills, right? And we want to motivate or inspire people to launch businesses in Savannah, Georgia, so that we have an economic impact on the city that we love, right? So our content is about programs that educate entrepreneurial skills to everyone in the region, right? And or telling the story of entrepreneurs, like tonight's entrepreneur night with Oakworks, telling the story of a successful entrepreneur, somebody that's successful in navigating growing a business in Savannah, Georgia, with a tech focus, right? So that's kind of like me filling out that statement for the Creative Coast. So we have value prop. So what's our value prop, right? And then really deep, which people, right? The last statement was all about the people. Who do we serve, right? Who are they? How do they spend their time? What are their challenges at their role at work? What is their tech aptitude? Again, we are a tech-focused organization. And we're talking about creating content that lives online. So what is their tech aptitude? What content do your audience want from you, right? So look at that typo, from you. You can ask, if you have an audience, you can ask your audience what kind of content they want. Where do they get information today that they trust, right? And what motivates them? What's their risk profile, right? So this is all diving into that buyer persona again, right? And I just took an old snapshot of a sample persona from a other pitch deck around that we do for the customer discovery program that goes in the boot camp, right? And this was a persona for a gaming program that we were working on. Socially competitive Samantha. She's a female, 28. Education, occupation, marital status, location. What are her motivations? What is her criteria? What are her frustrations? And then actually interviewed her and got some statements from her, or this type of person. And so, when I'm thinking about, the building a content marketing strategy, I'm thinking about creating, if you haven't already for your business, 2 or 3 personas that are your primary target customers, right? That your value proposition resonates with, right? And then thinking about really building out this persona profile such that I can really think about building meaningful content for these personas. So again, back to the basics. You should have done this as you were launching your company if you follow the customer discovery model, right? As you would already have built out your business model canvas, identified who your customers were, going deep in the personas, and identifying value propositions, and you know, building out the rest of the model from there. So now that we know who we wish to serve, we need to uncover their needs, right? And so a lot of this can be done through analytics, through search analytics. You know, what are popular search terms? You can use Google Trends in some cases. You can look at analytics on your own website. Social listening is one of my favorites, or as I mentioned earlier, sometimes I'll just put a post out there asking a question to my Twitter, following my Twitter group, and see who responds. And based on how they respond, I know whether or not they're interested. LinkedIn and Facebook groups are also good for that. If you have a sales team or you have customer service folks in place and you already have customers, you can use that channel. I've often built customer advisory boards that, you know, we would get together once a quarter and bounce ideas off of them and get their feedback before we would go live with them. And then customer, or I would say prospective customer interviews is another great way. Again, going back to the roots, doing your customer discovery to find out what topics your audience wants, and then that's how you figure out what to write about. You know, and then once you write it, you can use analytics to track more details. But, you know, I know we always have a full house when we do marketing talks at the Creative Coast, right? If I go too technical, I lose market share because we don't have that many techies in town, right? Talking about money to any entrepreneur community usually gets a lot of likes, right? So you can kind of figure out, once you understand who your, again, your buyer persona, understand your customer, understand your value proposition to those customers, figure out how to uncover what that audience needs, and then create content around it. The next thing I'm going to talk about is organizing content by persona and stage in the buyer journey. And so this also assumes that you have detail broken out your buyer journey, right? And so this is a framework that we used at ATDC to teach this, and at the Advanced Technology Development Center, the incubator for the state of Georgia. And we talked about kind of 4 main phases that a buyer would typically go through that we might be able to create content around: discovery, consideration, decision, and onboarding and renewal, right? So the discovery and consideration is kind of pre-sales, right? The discovery is they're just finding out about your product or service, right? Consideration is you're in the list of products or services that they're looking at to review to help with that business need, right? Decision is they're trying to make that decision and justify it possibly up the chain to their bosses and leadership, right? And then onboarding them, and then renewal, right? And so what can you create, you know, that in the discovery phase, right? White papers, trends, a lot of times you'll see like top 10 trends for this, right? Webinars, events, videos to actually move them from, how do you move somebody from discovery to consideration? We'll use this at Green Badger, local tech company in the construction space. They have a lead management software, right? So they do a lot of this white paper and trends. They use a webinar as their primary pre-sale, right? They get somebody onto the webinar and then they convert them into, now they're in the pipeline and hopefully getting that decision to move forward to purchase, right? So this kind of we've got the kind of phases across the top. The middle tier is what are you trying to achieve? And the bottom box in that same column is the type of content that you might produce to help enable that. Create content to make that customer hopefully move to the next stage of the buyer journey. And some buyer journeys are really complicated and take a long time, and some buyer journeys are, hey, I saw that and I'm going to buy it. So yes, in a B2C experience, this might be really short. In a B2B healthcare technology decision process could be 8 months, right? So the type of content that you're generating might vary depending on who your customer is. This is one that always gets people a little riled up when we talk about this, but it's how much content do you need to produce? One of the math questions that we used to teach when we taught this at ATDC was always number of personas times number of buying stages times number of question per stage equals X. Like, that's the number. But what we ended up really talking about was trying to produce typically about 50 pieces of content per month. So, and it seems like a lot. In fact, it seems overwhelming. I don't know that there's any special sauce behind it, but it does seem to work. And we've done this with company after company. With if you shoot for 50 a month, it's achievable. And it produces enough content to have a meaningful impact, or certainly get you search results and things like that. But it's like, oh my gosh, so much content, right? Well, it's really not, right? So if I wanted to take us back to the Creative Coast and how I think about creating content for the Creative Coast, right? There's elements of small content, bite-sized chunks. There's elements of longer shelf, high value, long shelf life content, which would be more like the video that we're going to record tonight for Entrepreneurs Night, which will be an hour long video from an entrepreneur and their story, versus a quick, 250 to 400 character blog post, bite-sized chunk on something that's going on. And then the last part of that is really probably the secret sauce of this is content curation in addition to creating your own content, right? And so when we look at the Creative Coast, we're doing on average 2 to 3 events a week, which turns into typically at least 6 pieces of content, right? The actual pre-event stuff, as well as the post-event. We're not talking social media posts. I mean, that might turn into 18 to 20 social media posts, right? But what is, the Eventbrite page and the Creative Coast website page that is the event that we end up marketing, and then the video post-event that we end up producing, right? And then we're shooting for 5 good news stories a week, right? So this is 5 pieces of content that we find an article, somebody doing good, and we either write the article ourselves or we share somebody else's good news through that, right? And so before anything else, we're pretty much we're closing in on 11 pieces of content per week, right? That's just planned. And then, so that's 44 pieces of content a month right there. So then all of a sudden, somebody else has a great story that we want to share that resonates with our audience. You do 1 or 2 of those a day, 1 or 2 likes and shares on somebody else's, one of our members' posts, and boom, we're at about 50 pieces of content a week, or a month, sorry, not a week, just with that. And so I think you have to set out your goal, right? And you have to understand what your goal is, right? And then you have to think about, how can I create small pieces of content that have meaning on my customer? How can I create longer shelf life white papers or videos that maybe, live for a lot longer? And then how can I curate content and organize and share it in such a way that it's meaningful to my audience, to stay top of mind in front of my audience? And again, we're talking strategy here, not implementation, right? Because now with the algorithms on the platforms changing frequently, you know, you may only want to do 2 posts a day on Facebook to not get kind of hidden from some of your channel. So that stuff's constantly changing, but the strategy behind creating great content doesn't, right? This is a really old content planning tool that Jackie Chu actually did for me. You can actually see the dates were in January of 2015. Started in 2015. So this was Startup Chicks. This was a Startup Chicks thing that we did. And it was really, you know, track who's going to create what the type of content you're going to create is, who it's going to do, nature, which persona it fits, which audience needs. So what stage of the buyer journey is that person at, right? What metrics are you going to use to track it? And then what's the call to action? There's lots of tools now that you can do to do this, but I mean, a good spreadsheet can do it as well. So there's lots of tools that can do this. I talked about some of them in one of my other classes that we did earlier this summer. I know Kate and Lisa recommend, is it Listly? Something like that. But there's new software tools that can do this, and there's always going to be another software tool that can do this. So depending on the size of your team and who's doing it, you know, Excel works, Google Sheets works. But it is important to track who, especially if you're working with a team, who's doing what when. And then be able to think about results, right? What the end game is, right? So in the way that I think about things, social media is a channel. It's not the content, right? I want to own the content. So I want blog posts and video on my own platforms that I lead people back to, because I can't own a tweet, right? I can't, like Google could decide to block it. I can't own a Facebook post. I can own a video that I share, like that I have on YouTube that I share somewhere else. And even if I embed it into Facebook or Instagram, I own that video, right? I can use it for other things. So think of content as the fire, and social media is the fuel that I'm adding to the fire, right? And so you want to create your fire, and then you want to share it. There's all sorts of distribution channels. You know, these are just some of them, right? Earned, owned, and paid. You know, I think Creative Coast uses mostly owned today. And then of course our earned, the employee social is really big for us. I do write a Savannah Morning News article, so we get decent coverage out of the media there. We do very little with paid today. And there's been a trend over COVID-19 as most people aren't doing a lot with paid today, which also means that there's a huge opportunity in paid today. So don't rule it out if you have the funds to do that. But so, you know, we're creating content and we're thinking about how to share it on these various distribution channels, you know. But my real encouragement is to go back to the basics and start with your value proposition to your customers, to do deep understanding of what your buyer personas are. Where are they hanging out? What type of content do they need? Are they begging for? Where are they? And then putting that in front of them. And then one thing to think about, every time you put a piece of content out there, oh, looks like I cut this off, is how will you amplify it? So great, you put a new blog post out there, you put a new video out there, how are you sharing it? How are you getting it out in front of your customer? And then the last section is really about metrics, objective metrics, right? Go in. When I start a new project, I don't necessarily have an understanding of what the key metrics might be, but I do think about setting a goal. I'm working on a side hustle right now with a friend, and our goal is to kind of get to the point where we have 300. We hope by the end of the year to have 300 people on our mailing list for this project, starting from scratch, 0 today. And so, you know, thinking about what kind of content we're going to share, how, you know, can we reach influencers to help us with that? And then thinking about, you know, there's metrics to understand what's being consumed, right? So are they reading it? Are they viewing it, right? The next component is, are they sharing it, right? Right. Ultimately, I want a sale. Like at the end of the day, of those 300 people that get onto that email list, how many people end up buying our product or service? That's what I'm hoping for. I don't know the metrics yet, but out of that, a certain number will go into a lead funnel, right? The 300 people that get into the mailing list, a certain number will self-identify through the email funnel that I'm going to set up based on will eventually get to a lead point and maybe attend a webinar, and then eventually we'll close the sale, right? So be thinking about, you know, it's great to get X number of people read the article or Y number of people, and then they shared it. That's awesome. But, you know, for most businesses, at the end of the day, if you don't get a lead and eventually a certain percentage of those turns into sales, it's going to be hard to justify your content strategy to leadership. So be thinking about ways when you're setting up your strategy to track all of this information, right? And to understand what success looks like, especially if you have to upsell this to somebody else in your organization. And right, last kind of slide for a workshop. We know our content is working because we track, boom, boom, boom. Like, what are you tracking, right? So that's pretty much it. If when I get this out, there's these black slides that are kind of questions that you can kind of put together in a statement and say, okay, you know, through our content strategy, I hope to be, you know, be seen as an expert in the field, right? And my value proposition to my customers is why, right? And here's my buyer personas. And in order to convince my buyers to that I'm an expert and that we're going to join, we're going to produce 50 pieces of content that talk about the various challenges on the buyer journey to solve their problem and engage them that way. And so that's really all I have for you today. So we've got time for questions if anybody has any. Let me see. Do I have chat open? Now I do. I have chat open. If anybody wants to ask a question in chat, or if you just want to unmute. Again, I'll put these slides up and the video up. Hopefully, now that we're editing them, it might be until tomorrow. But yeah, we're having somebody do a quick little intro and exit on our videos so they look a little bit more professional these days. So.
Hey, Jen, it's Lisa.
Hey.
Great presentation. Thank you so much. I always learn something new. And I think Kate and I were using a product called Loomly.
Loomly, that's what it was, yeah.
And which Kate actually introduced to me. So that's one possibility. I just want to bring something else to the conversation. To the next step, and this is something I'm always learning, is when I'm doing my content marketing and I'm distributing it, is to always be testing and be available to make changes. I just got through doing a whole 3-month, big strategy of getting a lot of content out there, and Kate knows this because Kate's been working with me. And I've made some shifts in what I'm doing based on the results I was not getting. So I really recommend, giving yourself maybe a 3-month timeline to come back and look at your metrics and look at what's working and what's not working and make the shifts and adjustments to improve your results. Because if you just keep doing the same old thing, think you're going to get different results, it's not going to work.
True, so true. And I mean, that I approach everything as a hypothesis and test model. It's just kind of the DNA that I have. If something's not working, stop doing it, right?
And I know some people just get into this mode of just creating content and putting it out there without stopping to say, is it really working?
Yeah.
So metrics are important, and what I've also discovered, I don't know if you've seen this, especially in COVID, the last 6 months, is, people, you can take risks a lot more quickly now. And if you fail, just move on. I think there's a higher tolerance right now for taking on more risk and just abandoning it if it doesn't work and trying something else. So I don't know if you've seen that, but I know I've seen it a little bit more.
I said that same thing to somebody yesterday. I was like, it's like right now, there's never been an easier way to test things, right? Because people are really, because of the shift that we've gone through, well, and it's interesting, the reason we're now doing edits of these videos is because I think we're about to move from a place that low fidelity products were really okay because everyone was just trying to figure it out in the beginning of this, and now this is the new norm. So I think people's expectations are gonna shift upward on the quality of video and the quality of content that's being produced than they were the last 6 months. But I still think there's a real opportunity just to put things out there, try new things. And if they work, great. Do more of it. If they don't work, stop. But that's also been my method of operations for probably the last decade. I mean, the reason we don't have 1 million cups in Savannah anymore is because it really wasn't working. So I just stopped it. Doesn't mean we won't ever have 1 million cups again, because maybe there'll be a time where it makes sense. But at the moment, it wasn't working, so we shut it down. Emily has a question about the tool that they use for content strategy and project management. I was testing a new tool for project management. Let me see if I can get back to my screen, stop share. Go to gallery, that'll be nice. I'll see everybody's face, yay. I am playing around with Infinity. It's a new project management tool. It was on Product Hunt. Kate turned me onto it. And I haven't made any decisions yet. I think I am probably gonna purchase it. It is a project management software, but one of the tools that they have is actually content strategies. So it's got different templates that you can add to your project management. And I think it's like $79 for a lifetime subscription right now. So instead of having to pay per project or pay per user, it's a project management tool that I was looking at right now. Lisa, what was that product you mentioned again? Loomly?
Yeah, Loomly. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
And the one you said was Infinity?
Yeah, so it's called startinfinity.com is the website. And this is a brand new product that's doing a lifetime temporary for about a month. They're offering a temporary lifetime license. So you pay for it now and you're done and you can use it forever. And it does have a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you pay for it now and you don't like it, you have 30 days to return it. But it's got all sorts of templates, like templates for product. I'll go back to share my screen again. So it's got, this is it here, Start Infinity, but it's got all these preset templates for like product development, project management, marketing, events, HR, sales, freelance, personnel. It's, I think, $79 right now. And as they upgrade it, they're just really trying to get traction away from Basecamp and some of the others right now. So I'm playing around with it. I bought one seat and I might add more. I bought it for me personally, but I might change it to be, or add a second channel for Creative Coast. And you could have like up to 10 users share it. And it looks pretty, it looks like it could replace Basecamp, as well as do things like it's got a content calendar that you can just add to your account, boom, as a template, and boom, now you've got a content calendar that you can have shared between your team. So it's new. I don't know, playing with it. We'll see. There's constantly new project management tools coming out. So, and there's constantly new social media management platforms coming out. So it's really hard to stay on top of that. I think you kind of just have to pick one and stick with it and not be overwhelmed by all the new stuff that comes out. If it's working for you. If it's not working for you, then search for another. All right, well, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna wrap it up.
Hey, Jen,
yeah.
it's Victoria. Hey, I just want to make a quick comment to piggyback off of what you and Lisa were talking about as far as identifying with your client's pain point. And I think I just wanted to echo sentiments in terms of, especially given the current climate that we're all in, where things have just gotten shaken up with people in business and so on and so forth. I think it's really a prime time, especially if you hunker down on understanding your client's problem and their pain issues and the radiation of that pain, that in expressing it more, I think distinctly, it's gonna be so much easier to capture those people, because oftentimes I'm a mindset coach in addition to the branding, but oftentimes people have pains and they aren't as aware of it initially. And then when things shake up a little bit, the feeling is a little more pronounced for them. So I just think now is when you're talking about, it's a great climate to kind of try and play around and do some stuff. It's also a great climate to like even dig a little bit deeper, because people that might not have noticed their issues before are on a heightened sense of awareness. And I think it'll be great to capitalize on that so you can help solve more problems.
Yeah, love it. I wrote a Savannah Morning News article probably back in April, right? And it was like, how do you move from fear to service? And that's like, as an entrepreneur, how do I move myself from fear to being of service to my audience, to my customer, right? And I still think the more we can do to think about how we serve our customers during this, crazy time, whatever. I don't know how long it's going to last. Nobody does, right?
Yeah.
It's opening up some, but then it's closing some. And, I do think there is no going back 100%. So there's going to be this new mixed medium mode for everything that we do, I think. I think one of the local schools is testing with classes from 4 to 7 p.m. for students, K through 12 students. Or I think it's mostly middle school and high school, but for, to see if that works better for them. So I think, people are open to trying new things to see what works. And I think there's going to be this mixed online and real world moving forward. I mean, who knows? But content's not going away, right? And content is a way to engage and educate and inspire your audience. And so, I would say follow Victoria's lead and hone in deep into that real pain and fear that people are experiencing, your customers are experiencing today. And if you can help them identify that and give them a path forward, you'll be extremely successful, and we'll come out of this together.